Yo, you never see black light. Black
See
like
this black light, black girls, front porch, braiding hair, stay still stay, inhale, breathing in, gelled up, weaved up, ashy knees, greased up, freeze pops, the block high, head shots, don't freeze.
Hey, hi. Thank you for listening to the very first episode of Black Boy Laws. So there's a few details that I need to get out. Obviously, if you're tuning in, you'll see along the way, you'll see the journey I'm trying to take everybody on along the way. First and foremost, let's address the title, Black Boy Laws. The reason I named it this is because I'm a black man, right? But I'm only a man in age, and I feel like the boy in me is still lost. When I grew up a lot in church. I grew up around people who were in the street, and that growing up experience taught me a lot. But as I got older and I had to unlearn a lot of things, it taught me how little I knew as well. So when I say black boy laws, I'm referring to the little boy inside of me who's still trying to figure things out, who's still trying to learn his way. The black boy, I feel like a lot of men find themselves in my same scenario, whether they grew up in church or grew up in the street, grew up however they grew up. They don't know who they really are, and they have to find a way to find themselves, find whatever they need to find themselves. So basically this podcast is going to be, or podcast web series, whatever you want to call it, this is going to be about my journey through religion into spirituality, my journey understanding toxic masculinity, toxic femininity, a litany of other topics, including homosexuality, and having to deal with that when you're growing up black, because there's a huge stigma around that. And I don't want to say that it doesn't exist in white homes, it doesn't exist in Spanish homes, it doesn't exist in Asian homes. I don't know about those other cultures. One day I'd like to speak to them, learn more about them. This podcast is also going to cover racism as well. So we're going to talk about the things in life that are inherently racist, whether it be systemic oppression or just the effects that slavery has had on our culture. So many things that I want to discuss. One of the episodes, prayerfully, I want to have a conversation with a Klansman. That's going to be a spicy episode, I imagine. But yeah, so the first part of the series that you guys are going to see if you're watching this is going to be about spirituality. So I'm going to be speaking to preachers, I'm going to be speaking to deacons, people who are still in the church. I'm also going to be speaking to people who have left the church, people who are completely atheists, people who are agnostic, who don't believe in God, but they do believe in a higher being, people who have spirituality as their main focus in life. Pretty much anything you can imagine, I'm going to try to speak to those people and get their perspective on things. One of the main points I want to drive home is, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, please feel free, comment, like, all of that, because I want that interaction. I want to have that civil discourse with people. I want to know how they feel about things. That's just the first part that I want to discuss. The second part of the series will likely be covering a major topic that came up last year or 2 years ago. I don't know what time it is with the pandemic. But one of the major topics that came up was when Megan Thee Stallion was shot, and the comment of believe black women came up, or protect black women came up. And a lot of people seem to have an issue with that, male and female. But a lot of men, they don't know what protect black women means to black women. And a lot of black women don't know what protect black women means to black men. And I think that there's some discourse to be had there, and a lot of discussion, and maybe we can reach a common ground on that so that women can be protected. They can feel safe. They can feel protected. If this wasn't the very first episode, the pilot episode, I'd ask my friend, my cousin, whatever she is to me, Chanel, how she felt. She's so stupid. How she felt about that, but you'll be seeing more about that in future. Let's see. One of the other major things that needs to be discussed is toxic masculinity and femininity. One of the big things that comes from that is man up. You know, that's a phrase I knew my whole life. I've grown up knowing It's a loud phone, huh?
Girl, cut that shit off. Sorry.
I want to leave all this in too because this is part of being black. This is the experience, Yeah, toxic masculinity, man up, femininity, man up, all of that. There's a lot to be discussed and unpacked there. You don't get to, as a man, you don't get to express yourself. You don't get to be free. You don't get to have emotion because it's shunned. It's looked down upon. We don't have that freedom. In this generation, we might have that freedom. This generation that's coming up after us may feel that freedom, but the ones that I'm in, they don't have that freedom. They don't feel like they can speak whenever they need to speak. They don't feel like they can cry openly without being called pussy, without being called weak, without being called soft. We need that kind of freedom. And maybe this doesn't resonate with people who are younger than me because they have that, but it's a big thing, and especially in the black community. I can only speak to the black community, so I'm going to speak to the black community. I think this episode will probably be a little bit shorter than what you can expect. You can expect usually between 30 minutes to about an hour 10. This episode will be a little bit short. I just want everybody to know what I'm going to be discussing in this series. I'm going to really deep dive on racism and the effects that it's had. I want to discuss financials when it comes to the black community. I want to discuss that quote unquote aggression that men are deemed to have and that women are deemed to have, especially when it comes to black women. Black women aren't given the freedom or the space to be strong because as soon as they're strong, they're seen as aggressive. As soon as they're aggressive, they're seen as undesirable. You know what I mean? When it comes to sexuality, men often look, especially men, I'm sorry to say it, but this is especially men, women too, but especially men, they look at sexuality as the measure of a man. So if you are homosexual, they look at you as something almost less than. I'll get into why I believe that to be the case, but all this will be in future episodes. Everything is going to be something that comes up in the future. I want to talk about black love. I want to talk about interracial love as well, because at the time of recording and prayerfully, as long as this goes on, I'm in an interracial relationship. And I think that there's a lot of people that have this misconception that when you're in an interracial relationship, you cannot also be pro-black. And that's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's flat out. There's so many things about blackness that is toxic. There's also a lot of things that are beautiful. So we're going to discuss some of the beauties of blackness. Like I mentioned before, we're going to discuss black love. We're going to discuss so many things on this podcast and web series, again, whatever you like to call it. So I just hope that everybody who's listening is willing to tune in week by week, see episodes, see where they go from there, have conversations. And if you're willing to, you can even come on the podcast. You can come on and discuss with me. That's pretty much all. If you have any questions for me, please, again, comment, DM me, however you feel comfortable, and we'll go from there. Again, see you guys next week. This will be a new series going forward. She's never going to be on it. Thank you guys for listening. God bless.